You look so cozy. I thought I'd come up here and sit down. So today I wanted to bring to you the tips, tricks, and trends that we're seeing in education publishing. And that covers pre-K-12 to higher education using our coverage. So Simba Information, what we do is we create a newsletter and syndicated reports covering education and professional publishing. So if you have any questions at the end of this regarding how we get the numbers that we get, just let me know and I will definitely help you out. So I think it's very fitting that we are here in St. Augustine and I'm giving a presentation on education publishing because just down the road, the oldest wooden schoolhouse was built over 2 centuries ago, and it still stands. So it's a living reminder of education and its legacy in the U.S. So to get started, hopefully I can get this. Okay, that's the wooden schoolhouse. So today, just introduction and context. Then we're going to move to the K-12 market overview, kind of what is impacting the market, funding and policy drivers, technology. We'll touch on AI because that is impacting education at a rapid rate. And then we'll move to higher education course materials, and I'll give you just the key trends that are highlighted in this presentation at the very end. So, the market landscape. What we track is content, technology, printing, distribution, and how it is implemented in the classroom. So that can cover ed tech, any apps that are used, if they're tied to content that is printed in the classroom, we definitely pay attention to that. We have seen over the past few years since the pandemic, we have seen a lot of growth in connected products, so ed tech crossed with published materials. So you'll see the market overview post ESSER funding, which was impacted in 2020 with COVID. You'll see that we have consistent growth and market sizing as far as publications go in education. It has grown significantly since 2020 due to the ESSER funding. So now that the funding has stopped, we're still expecting to see growth because there are trends hitting education like AI and hybrid models. But we'll see it kind of level off. We're not going to see growth in the coming years just because government funding, which I'm sure you've already heard about, the impact to Title I and all the funding is hitting education really hard right now. But because we see AI and we see other trends hitting the market, we also know that it's going to plateau. We'll still have some information out there, but it's not going to be as consistent in growth as you see here. So part of what we look at Simba to understand market sizing and what people are interested in and how they apply what they buy in the classroom is we look at enrollment. So we have seen, again, like I said, because of the budgetary impacts that are happening, the loss of ESSER, the loss of funding with Title I, special education, and lower enrollment, that is going to impact the amount of materials that are implemented in the schools. So you'll see it's going to, again, plateau in the coming years. But we're hopeful that we'll see continued growth beyond 2026, but we're going to see a plateau from 2025 into 2026 due to lower enrollment and the budgetary impacts at the federal level. So these are the funding environment impacting education recently. So you'll see ESSER is the biggest driver to growth from 2020 to now. And since it has stopped completely, we have seen a reduction in schools adopting new materials. So they're just using and trying to find ed tech companions with the materials that they already have. So what that means is they're not purchasing new textbooks. They're not purchasing new, core materials, but they are purchasing supplemental. We're seeing growth in supplemental materials. We're seeing growth in reading due to the science of reading. And we are seeing growth in materials that have a connection with ed tech. So it's more of a cohesive system that classes and schools, districts across the U.S. are looking for. Something where they can track ROI along with implementing the materials that they already have access to, so they don't have to push out more money. So again, we watch these policies and see, essentially, we're looking at how the policy is impacting the adoption at the state or federal level. So we're seeing growth in the science of reading. We're seeing growth in financial literacy, civics education, CTE, which is career and technical education. Those are the real big pushes in recent years, especially in 2025. And AI is impacting this as well. Now, across the U.S., science of reading and civics education have been implemented at the state level. Most of the states have implemented something to correlate to the science of reading and civics education. You'll find, because of the Trump administration, that civics education right now, we're having some friction. States are unsure of what they would like their programs to involve. So there are some changes at the civics level due to the federal government and what is going on at the federal level. So because at the federal level we're having some impact with the libraries and history, civics education has changed. That's also changed our assessments and everything in the classroom in regards to civics education. Now, CTE, on the other hand, is the highest growing area in education right now. So anything related to career and technical growth, we're seeing schools partner with companies and other associations to get materials involved, to get them involved with students at the school level. So CTE is a really big growth. It's a really big push for the Trump administration as well. We're seeing a lot of investment across the board, across the U.S. in CTE. So now we're going to touch on sort of the market as a whole, what's impacting it, and what are the trends. We're seeing, especially since 2020, that it kind of started the digital growth, the hybrid growth. Teachers have reported 88% of them use print textbooks or workbooks. 92% use digital platforms, and that continues to grow. And we're also seeing 76% have reported using a hybrid of print and digital. Okay, that is growing, the blended packages, that's growing a lot recently since the ESSER funding has faded away. We're seeing the hybrid approach really grow. They want to see ROI. They want to see their materials connected to the technology that they use, because there's a really big push for AI and other technologies in the classroom, like Chromebooks and all those things that you guys are aware of. But because there's a growth and a push for that technology, a lot of the teachers don't feel very confident in just using the technology as a basis. They really want to make sure that it's tied to their curriculum. And that's what a lot of ed tech leaders are focusing on now, is just making sure that the teachers have materials that are connected, that are cohesive, to build an environment where they can talk about the technology, but also teach the subject matter to the students. So artificial intelligence, as I said, it's the highest growing area in education right now. Part of it is because of the push at the federal level. Trump is very invested in AI in education. But at the organization level, at ed tech level, a lot of ed tech leaders are incorporating AI. We're seeing in professional publishing, like Gale and other companies are incorporating AI in their search, in their assessment of papers that are turned into them. We're seeing AI incorporated across the board for analytics as well. At the K-12 level, AI is being implemented mainly for lesson plan development, but we're also seeing some teachers trying to incorporate writing, like ChatGPT has been used across the board in education, and they're trying to figure out a way to use it in a manner that students can still develop their own writing skills while also using AI. That's why ChatGPT created the ChatGPT for Education. Now, we are tracking those platforms. We're tracking the AI implementation to stay on top of what's trending, what's not, and what we could possibly be looking for in the future. So content creation is the top. It's adaptive feedback, translation. Editing and design, again, at the teacher level, that's the main focus, is editing and design for lesson plans. And then printing and distribution, we are seeing some AI tools incorporate tools for just printing off adaptive lessons for students. So it's based on what information the teacher inputs into the AI system, and then they're able to print off a leveled, differentiated packet of information for these students. So it's almost like using AI as a co-teacher rather than as a tool. So they're using AI to differentiate the instruction, to incorporate the information in a way that students can really understand it in a meaningful, impactful way. But it also is cheaper because AI allows you to do this with the materials that you have. So that's why there's a bigger investment in AI in education, especially at the pre-K-12 level, because there's a loss of funding, and they're really pushing for having differentiated information for students for low costs, if that makes sense. So now we'll move to higher education. It's a little bit different than pre-K-12. We're seeing consistent growth. The course materials market in 2023 reached $3.14 billion. So that's a growth over 2022. But you'll also see that consistently across the board, it has kind of maintained In 2025, however, due to the federal laws and policies impacting higher education, we are seeing a decline. Now, it's not major yet, but as mentioned before, the loss of international students, the loss of assessments at the college level. There's a lot of colleges that are looking into new assessments for admissions. Just the impact of the cost of higher education on the environment, students just don't have the money now, and they don't want to invest in student loans because of the student loan, dilemma that we all run into as students. I still have student loans, and I think that's holding a lot of students back in America, is because they know that student loans kind of just exist. They'll probably exist forever. And these students, it is impacting their belief in just higher education as a whole. They aren't seeing a return on their investment. They're not seeing any growth in their career based off of what they're experiencing in higher education. And so all of that combined is lowering the market share for higher education course materials. So we have seen in 2024 to 2025, there has been a growth in enrollment at these schools. But 2025 moving into 2026, we have seen it kind of drop off a little bit. It's more at public two-year universities here, you'll see, there was growth at 4.3% from 2024 to 2025. That has continued to grow because a lot of students are not interested in a 4-year degree when a 2-year degree gets them into the workforce sooner. There's a growth in that CTE area because of that. Now, private and for-profit public school 4 years institution, we're seeing that level off now. These numbers are from 2024 to 2025, so you'll see that it did grow in 2024 and 2025, this enrollment. But we're seeing that level off due to the federal laws and policies impacting higher education. So what is the outlook for the education market? Essentially, we're looking at a hybrid print-digital market. So they coexist in the long term. It's evidence-based procurement. They want to know that they are getting a return on their investment. So people aren't spending money unless they know that the programs work and work well with what they have access to. It has to operate with what they already have in the classroom. So if it requires new technology, if it requires new coursework, we're seeing that a lot of schools are just putting a pause on that. Customization or localized, like small orders, that has been growing because states are changing their policies from the federal government as well. So we're seeing like states are very different across the board. Some states are invested in the science of reading. Some states are more invested in CTE growth. Some are impacted by civics and history. They're not adopting new information because they are really researching the history and civics in a deep way. So we're seeing a lot of changes at that level, at the state level. A lot of states are just really interested in making sure that their beliefs are aligned with the products that they bring into effect in the classroom. And then we're seeing a lot of publisher reinvention, and that goes back to AI implementation. publishers across the board, McGraw-Hill, Pearson, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, Gale, Renaissance, Scholastic, across the board, they're all implementing AI in some way. Now, most of these AI tools right now are just at the analytics, like the base level, so they can differentiate just the material that they're reading, so they can change the Lexile range. We're seeing, though, across the board, that AI is being implemented more in a way for teachers to use it as a tool to incorporate the information in the classroom. So there is growth, but right now, AI, because there aren't any standards really at the state level for AI incorporation, there's not a set of standards at the federal level for AI incorporation. We're seeing AI incorporated. It's just at a smaller level than it will be in the future. There is a big push for AI development. So based on Simba's reporting and track and AAP, we're seeing the total revenue for K-12 and higher education course materials growing across the board. Now, for year to date, in higher education, we are seeing about 31% of revenue in total. It has changed slightly. That is due to just a loss of money. Higher education and pre-K-12, they're just, because we are losing funding, there's not an investment in purchasing new information. So we're seeing some decline, essentially. It's recalibrating the market due to just the policies that are occurring. Ooh, you can't see that very well. Sorry. So pre-K-12 is going to remain steady. Just core and assessment programs that's driving renewals right now. Core materials are still being adopted. It's just at a smaller level across the board in the U.S. Now, Simba doesn't track global education. We are pushing for it in the future, but right now our numbers are just based on education in the U.S. Higher ed, we're expecting a mild decline. This is due to OER subscriptions and other publications regarding higher ed. And then as a whole, the education market, it is still growing, but there's a focus on skill-based learning and CTE alignment. So there's growth, but just in certain areas, like reading, CTE, AI, as I've mentioned before. So in closing, essentially, what Simba has found is there's a hybrid convergence. It's going to define the future. Print and digital exist together in education, and that is going to continue into the future. Collaboration ensures sustainability. If publishers collaborate with ed tech companies or with schools, we're seeing a higher rate of adoption. For those companies that aren't collaborating, like Chegg, like Duolingo, we're seeing some decline there. So there is a big push for collaboration at the state level just to make sure that they are impacting education in a way that is sustainable for the future. Discovery Education does this really well, and they are seeing a lot of growth with their incorporation of AI tools and professional development for teachers as well. And then craftsmanship remains education's foundation. This goes back to AI here. There's AI growth in education based on if it can create and make things easier for teachers. If it can create something that a teacher can implement quickly, that means that it's going to be implemented in the classroom quickly. If it doesn't, if a teacher has to have training, if a teacher has to go around through 4 different tools to use it, they're not going to implement it. And that's what we're finding. The easier it is to implement, the more it will be adopted. So I'm going to leave that up there. That's just if you want more information about me or Simba as a whole. And then I will take questions now if you have any questions.
Raise your hand.
Thank you for this. In one of your earlier slides, you noted that the enrollment in the public school system had gone down 1 million students from pre-pandemic to last year. And we in this room all know that the homeschooling gave us a boost or a boom insurgence. I'm curious, as vouchers come back into the conversation and some of those million students probably went to private schools as opposed to public, how you see the private schools implementing or tapping into their resources, specifically printed versus digital versus hybrid?
There's still, at the private level, it's still focused mainly on hybrid if there's a tool that fits with the program that they already have. Now, there is more spending at the private level just because they have more money. And then vouchers, we are seeing growth in charter schools just based on the voucher programs. But as you said, homeschool really has pushed that growth and lowered the enrollment at public schools since 2020. And we're seeing that homeschool is still continuing to grow and be impacted in that way. But yes, at the private school level, we are seeing more adoptions because they just have more money available to them.
Thank you.
Okay. Martha, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Get off the hook.